Well, hey everyone, Carrie Beck here with Homeschool Coffee Break, where we help you stop the overwhelm so you can actually stop and have a coffee break. We are talking about a topic today that is near and dear to my subject. We're talking about the Bible, which all are like, okay, yeah, me too. But we're also combining it with fun activities, and I'd love to find fun activities that will encourage our kids to really dive into the Bible and just learn more about God. That is why I'm excited that Katie J Trent is here with me today, and she is just going to be giving y'all some great ideas. So welcome, Katie. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be with you today talking about some of my favorite things.
Well, we are not going to postpone anything. We're going to dive into this topic. And I will say before we do that, some of y'all know Katie and some of you don't. So, Katie, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, as you said, my name's Katie. I have been an author for many years now. You may know my books, Dishing Up Devotions or Recipes for a Sweet Child. I love building biblical literacy. I love just making things fun and engaging. I'm a homeschool mama of two, so I've been around the homeschool world, and I'm so blessed to get to speak to thousands of homeschoolers around the world. Every year, we've been homeschooling now, we've just wrapped up our seventh year, and we're already about to launch into our eighth. And so it has been such a journey. I have a background in like mental health, and so I incorporate in ministry. And so I kind of just take all of those things together and combine them into resources to equip busy homeschool moms.
That is something, and y'all don't know this, but I just learned something about Katie that I didn't know, and that was that you had a degree in mental health. I'm like, wow, that is so interesting. I just can't
Yes,
even imagine. I mean, I will say in the past several years, I have learned a lot more about mental health than I probably wanted to, but that's probably because I was dealing with my own problems. But that is so good. And I think that is something that's come to the light, especially in the last few decades, that was just way off there. And so we won't go diving down that little rabbit trail, but that's interesting. So okay, so I know our moms a lot of times, and some dads might be listening, but we want to pour the Bible into them. We want them to grow in a relationship with Jesus and all, but a lot of times we either can't find the time, we're struggling some way. So can you sort of talk about why you think moms struggle with discipling their own kids?
yeah. I think there's so many layers to that. I think number one is that we haven't been discipled. I know nobody came alongside me and said, "Hey, Katie, you're a parent now. Here's how you disciple your kids." Or even before I was a parent, here's how you do it. We all come from different walks of life and where our own faith journey is. I wasn't raised in the church, I didn't have that experience. And so I felt like I was kind of muddling through it myself. And then we have so many responsibilities on us as mothers, whether we work outside of the home or not, just caring for our kids and caring for our homes and helping out our families and all of the things that we experience in a day to day life can be overwhelming. And so trying to find the time, trying to know, are we doing enough? Is what I'm doing actually going to be effective? Is it helping? Or listening to all the latest and greatest people tell you all the ways that you should do. And so you're trying to piece together and implement all of these strategies that most likely many of them aren't working for your kids, or maybe for one or two of your kids, they're not working. And so I think that there's so many things that come at us that make it really challenging to disciple our kids.
That's really interesting. I was thinking too, like you just mentioned, you're trying to do the latest and greatest. So how would a mom decide? I mean, like there is so much out there, especially with the world of the internet. And so how do they make those decisions about what to do with kids? And you're really right. I mean, parenting is the number one job I really think we ever have, and we are the least experienced in what to do. So how do they make some decisions about that?
Well, I know for me, the first thing I always do is pray, because I recognize that in and of myself, I don't have all the answers. I don't know the right ways. And even though maybe on earth, I know my kids better than anyone else, our creator knows them so much better and what they need. And so I always go back to James 1:5. I ask for wisdom on a daily basis to lead and guide me in the things that I should do. And so first off is prayer, and then I think second off is, seeing what resonates, what sounds like, what, this intrigues me. This seems like it might be something worth trying. I look for things that are low stress. I'm not going to put a huge investment in something if I don't know that it's going to work, right? And so I think sometimes we can spend so much money and time and try all of these things, and that just overwhelms us even more and shuts us down. So if we start with little things, that makes a big difference. And then seeing how our kids respond. I mean, that's really a lot of where our discipleship has come from, is seeing like, okay, well, they don't want to sit for that, or this isn't keeping their attention, or, what does this look like? And so walking through that has been really helpful for me, and looking for just quick, simple ways to I sprinkle, like everybody loves sprinkles, right? And so I think sometimes we want to just sit down and have a discipleship moment that's just like, okay, this is our Bible time, and this, this check this box. But I think if we look at discipleship more as sprinkling, then we're just sprinkling truth, we're sprinkling discipleship all throughout our day. And then it's not an overwhelming thing or where we're struggling with our schedule, but it's really just looking for places that we can add more of these delicious sprinkles that are going to enhance everything that they're doing. And it makes it funner, it makes it more meaningful, more memorable, and way less stressful.
That's so good. It reminds me, I think it's the name of a book I read like right out of college called Lifestyle Evangelism. And it's basically it's lifestyle discipleship, it's whatever you're doing. And I think some of the most meaningful moments we ever had were just driving my kids to soccer practice or something, because all of a sudden I mean, my son especially, that is when he talked the most. And he wasn't a big talker because he had two sisters that talked nonstop and he couldn't get a word in edgewise. So the car was a great place. Maybe it was a safe and a secure place that we could have meaningful conversation. So I love that sprinkle.
Absolutely. I love that. And that's important too, is finding out like, where do we have our kids' most undivided attention? Where are their guards down? Where are they sharing? Some of them, it's that, you're trying to get them in bed and you're like, oh, why do they want to have this in-depth conversation? But if we seize that moment and embrace that, that's a beautiful time of connection where we can do it. Or in the car, because they're not really, you're not looking at them, right? I know a lot of times kids, like if you're just looking at them, that's really intense. And so maybe they're not as comfortable. And that's why, like, I do baking. When we're together and we're working on something and just having fun, the conversation flows. And so we're able to hear their heart and share our heart in a way that is maybe less intimidating and more natural. And I think that that's really powerful in discipleship.
Oh, that's so good. Well, and speaking of baking or fun activities, we've got the summertime. Not some people school year round, I get that, but most of them still take a little bit of a break. So there's a lot of open time during the summertime with moms and their kids. And, we don't want to just fill it up with a bunch of activity that has no purpose. So I'm sort of thinking, I mean, I love the summertime because you can really be intentional. What do you have some ideas of how moms could involve Bible and family discipleship into some fun activities that they could do this summer?
Yeah, absolutely. And to make it really easy, I would go with these three C's. If you can remember these three things, they will help you as you're planning out your summer and you're looking at discipleship. And so the first C is commitment. Commitment is so important, especially in summertime. It ends up going by so fast. And if you're not very intentional, then you can miss that opportunity and look back and think, oh, we didn't do all of these things that we wanted to do, And I really look at discipleship as an essential part of life. So my kids have to breathe every day to live, right? My kids have to eat every day. They need to sleep. There's things that they need to be healthy. And so we need to look at discipleship as just as essential as all of those things. And if we see it as that essential for living, then we're going to make sure that we prioritize it. So making that commitment that every day you're going to sprinkle discipleship in whatever ways you can. And we'll talk about some of those things, but making sure you have that commitment will really make a difference. And when you're committed to it, then you're going to find those ways and you can start to move through that. So the first is commitment. The second C is connection. Our kids need a heart to heart connection with us, because if they have a strong relationship with us, our discipleship is going to be so much more effective. So when we're saying they trust us, we trust them, we value each other, and we're committed in that way, then when we're making those meaningful moments, those stick. When you look back on your summers, you think about like the best moments, the funnest moments, the most meaningful moments, and those are what you remember. And so if you're just intentional to try and have some connected moments, like where you're in the car with your kid and you're having those conversations, or where we're baking and we're having those conversations, or we're doing something fun and unexpected, or just something where you're connecting on a heart to heart level, I think that makes a big difference regardless of the activity that you're doing. And then the third C is creativity. And that's where summertime is so fun. The first thing that we always do to start our summer off is we create a summer bucket list. And we get down and, we've done it with big whiteboards. You could do it on a poster. You could do it, however you want to do it, sticky notes, whatever it is, you can have fun. But sit down as a family and say, what are some things that you really want to make sure we do this summer? Because not every summer can you go on a cruise or do these big things, but every summer you can blow bubbles, or every summer you can have a water fight, or go swimming or explore a new park or whatever it may be. So sit down and kind of come up with the things that you guys love doing as a family. And then it's fun to check those things off, gaze at the stars, camp outside, whatever it is. But having those times where okay, these are the things that are important, because if it's important to your kid, I guarantee you they're gonna be paying much closer attention during those times than if they're doing something that they consider boring or, not interesting to do. So if they're doing something they love, that's where you can do it. If I'm laying out under the stars, I'm talking about Abraham and God's promises to Abraham and the number of stars in the sky. And let's see how many we can count, name. Do you know the names? So you're taking just these moments of connection together and you're bringing your faith into it. You're pointing out truths from the Bible. You're sharing stories of your own testimonies of things God has done. You're sharing things that you've experienced. You're talking about answered prayers. You're just connecting and having those meaningful moments. So we always start with that bucket list. And then we just look for ways each day to have some fun. If you're wanting to memorize scripture, maybe you get the chalk out and you go out on the driveway and you draw pictures and you write scripture out. Maybe you play hopscotch and you're hopping along to different things, or like I said, blowing bubbles and trying to catch all the bubbles before, the person gets it out, or singing the books of the Bible song, or, depending on the ages of your kids, there's just so many ways that you can bring in activities. Maybe you're planting a garden, and so you're talking about sowing seed and, the parable of the sower. And so it's really just getting creative. The other thing is with your creator, right? Summertime, there is no better time, no matter where you live, to explore the beauty of God's creation and to wonder and to marvel, like, wow, look at these insects. How amazing is God that He cares so much about these insects? And look at the flowers and the trees and the birds and the sun and the clouds and the sky. And so there's the world around us creates just numerous opportunities, endless opportunities to grow in discipleship and to teach our kids truths from the Bible. So I love connecting with my kids in that way, and they respond, right? They're hungry, they're excited, they're making those connections, and they don't even know that they're supposed to be learning or it's something, strategic. They're just enjoying life together with us.
That is so good. And I also think what you said is so good too, because you can pursue your family interest, your child's interest, because I know you're a baker and I'm sure your kids are in the kitchen all the time, but someone else, like you said, one of my very best friends is gardening. And so if that's it, your kids tend to follow some of the things that you are personally interested in, and we can take those interests and turn them into something, a biblical lesson of some sort. But I also think some moms are probably like, I can't think of things off the fly. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Mhm.
I need some help, or I mean, there are some things that I just feel like I do naturally and I don't even think
Mhm.
about when I'm talking to my grandkids, for instance. But a lot of moms either they're afraid to do it, they're afraid they're going to do the wrong thing, or they just they feel like they have no creativity inside of them. Do you have any words of wisdom for that
Yeah.
type of mom?
Well, first off, know that you're not alone. And actually, here's a big secret. I'm one of those kinds of moms. Fun does not come naturally to me. It is hilarious to me that God has made my whole ministry about putting the fun back in the fundamentals of family discipleship, because I'm not the fun mom. I'm not the creative mom. I'm not the one, doing all those things. And so this all stemmed from just taking time to connect with God. So a couple different things that can help you is number one thing I do is when I'm doing my Bible study time, and I'm reading a story, I'm reading something in the Bible, I'm asking, okay, God, how can I help my kids understand this? And one way to remember how to do it, it doesn't matter how old your kids are, is we all need things to be more concrete. So trying to think in terms of concrete, black and white, tangible object lessons is important. So if I'm reading the story, I might say, okay, God, how could I tie this in? And maybe I'll kind of think about throughout my day. And I might not have the answer right then, but if I'm thinking about it, then something might come to me. So keeping a journal where you can kind of keep track of those things. Or, like you mentioned earlier, we live in an incredible time where there are free Sunday school lessons and Bible lessons all over the internet. There's lots of ways to do that. Or if you're like, I don't want to have to search, I mean, that's why my books are there, right? So if you're like, I want to grow in character, dishing up devotions, you grab that book and it's got your activity, it's got your baking recipe, it's got devotion in there, you're able to do it. Or recipes for a sweet child has lots of fun, like nostalgic family activities that are great for summertime because they're just all sorts of engaging things that you can do related to the Bible. That one has your discussion questions right there too, so you can cultivate the conversation. And it's got the devotion and it's got a baking recipe if you want to bake. You don't even have to. But there's lots of different tools. So you can find tools and kind of have on hand to be able to pull something off the shelf. I'm an open and go kind of a person. So I love having resources where I can just flip something open and have it ready. So put some tools in your tool belt that way and have those, and then spend some time looking. And then once you start, I think it kind of opens a floodgate, right? Like I think like, oh, I could never do that, or I don't know how to do it. But when you're partnering with God and you're starting to look for those things, you'd be amazed at how quickly some of these ideas can come. And then following people like Carrie, listening to the podcast, like looking for those resources that God has put that have amazing ideas and resources at your fingertips helps as well.
That is so good. And because there are people that don't know. And for those of y'all that haven't ever seen Katie's books, I have seen them and they are quality and they're just spot on and they are easy where you can just open it up and go. And I know I've looked a lot for the recipes through Sweet Child. My grandkids, I'm hoping this summer when they come to cousin camp, we can try out some of those. But it's not like I'm around them all the time, or when they are, they're like crazy because we're only there for an hour. But okay, so we're in summertime, and I know it is several months away, Christmas time, and yet I do know, well, it's never too early to plan, but I don't normally plan this early. But I want you to just talk about holidays and think about maybe Christmas in particular. What are some ways that moms could really focus on Christ amidst all the hustle and bustle and commercialism and the kids like, gimme, 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 or I want. So what do you have some ideas for that time of year?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's important, I think, to pray into it now. Again, if we're not intentional, those seasons just pass us by. And so I would say there's two things that I live by when it comes to keeping Christ at the center of Christmas and really teaching my kids more than just the story, but really how to live out their faith and how to really utilize that as an evangelistic season and a season to really grow more like Christ. And so the two things that we focus on is we focus on loving like Jesus. That's one of the things that should be a topic of conversation regularly. How did we love like Jesus today? What can we do to love like Jesus today? And looking for opportunities to be the hands and feet of Jesus and love people well. And with that comes the second one, which is serve like Jesus. So often, especially like you said, in that holiday season, we get so focused on ourselves and we want our I wants and I want this and I want that and I want to do this. But if we'll keep those at the center of our mind, put them up in your house, love like Jesus, serve like Jesus, there's no better time to spread the love of Jesus than during the Christmas season, because that's a time where even people who don't know Christ are open to Christmas. They're open to that. They're more generous. They're more focused on their brothers and sisters and people around them. And so families are gathering, it's just a time where you can really be effective in doing that. And so those are two things that we really focus on each holiday season.
That's so good. Love and serve like Jesus. Our pastor, well, we had a guest pastor on Sunday, and he was talking about we are known, they will know we are Christians by our love. And he says, now this is totally different subject, but he goes, they're not going to know you're Christians by being right, because too often we just always want to prove ourselves and defend ourselves or our busyness or whatever. So that is so true. And to teach our kids and to model that. So at Christmas time, change that little flip thing and make it so that they're loving and serving like Jesus. That is so good. I know you've got a book that's coming out Christmas, and I also know that right now people can go ahead and pre-order it. Could you tell people a little bit about your new book?
Yes, I'm so excited for this book. It's called A Merry and Bright Adventure, a Christmas devotional for family, faith, food, and fun. And this is going to be the easiest way to transform, not just this year, but forever, the way your kids look at the sights and sounds and smells of Christmas. And so each of the 25 devotions is focused around a common holiday item that we see and points us back to Jesus. So, how can we look at the star on top of our tree and think of Jesus? How can we look at the colors of Christmas and think about Jesus? How can we look at that wreath or that red bow or, the Christmas tree itself or the lights display that we're seeing? And how can it help us know a little bit more about Jesus and be a little bit more like him? And so they're all focused on those common holiday traditions, and each one has this is a family devotion. So, a quick little family devotion you can read together and a little lesson that's super simple, like be the light of the world, something to hold on to. And then it's got a fun family activity because, again, you're making those connections, you're making those memorable moments so that the lesson sticks. And so you have a fun family activity and you have a recipe that is used as an object lesson. And this one is different than my other books, whereas my other books are more baking focused. Because this is 25 days in a row, nobody, not even myself, wants to bake 25 treats in a row. And I love baking. So this has got fun, simple drinks and things, like a starry grilled cheese sandwich or, a breakfast smoothie, different things incorporated so that you can do them each day. But it's just a beautiful way to kind of take your kids through that where by the end of it and each day in it, they're focused on Jesus instead of on themselves, instead of on all of the hype and commercialization. So grab it now, and you can actually get a beautiful pre order bundle with it when you pre order. So it's got lots of homeschool activities, it's got lots of fun crafts and different things that you can use as you go along through it. So
It's awesome. And y'all, I don't know, well, if you've been around me, you know that food is one of my favorite ways to teach anything. Like, this past spring we had the solar eclipse, so let's get the Oreos out and let's make the faces of the moon. But what better way to be so intentional is to use something kids enjoy, like food, and draw that into Christmas or even the Bible. I just love the way that you tie the food into that as well. So, wherever you're listening to this, you'll see links below, and you can get all the links to wherever her books are. And if you want to pre-order, go ahead and get it. You can get that bundle along with it as well. And I did forget to ask you. So, if people wanted to connect with you, is there a better, like, is it better to try to find you on social media? We'll have those links, but what's the best way if people want to connect with you?
I'd say my website, katiejtrent.com, is the easiest way because you'll find links to all my social sites. You can find me on all the social media as well. You'll find my email address. I'm always happy to answer questions, but that's probably the most centralized hub for all of my family faith building resources and connection.
Oh, that is awesome. Well, but before we close, is there anything you'd like to share with our moms
I just want
in
to
closing?
encourage you to use this time wisely, have fun, take that stress off, and don't worry. If your kids are in a season where they can't sit still for more than a couple minutes, that's okay. Remember that your kids are watching you, they're receiving from what they're learning from you. And even just those little moments of sprinkling in truth are going to yield a beautiful harvest if you just keep sowing into them. So have fun, make those meaningful moments, and just start to wonder aloud together. So much of what we learn is just, I wonder about this, or have you ever thought about that? Just asking questions. You'd be amazed at how you can really cultivate that conversation and connect it back to the Bible and inspire your kids to want to know more just by enjoying that time together. So
Oh, that is well said. So thank you, Katie, for being here today. I really appreciate you just carving out some time to be with us.
thank you for
So,
having me. I love being with you.
all right. And I'm Carrie Beck with Homeschool Coffee Break. We'll talk to you next time.